All right, Mr. Austin here, and today we're going to be talking about modeling with quadratic functions. First of all, when we're modeling these, we know we've got three different forms that we've talked about. We've got vertex form, we've got intercept form, and we've got standard form. We're going to start today talking about vertex form. So let's get started. All right, so writing a quadratic function in vertex form. First of all, you'll notice we're given a graph. We know 2 points on the graph, one being a very important point, that is the vertex point. Remember that this is our vertex. The other point that they've given us is down here, and that is the point 7, -3. We're going to be using these in our modeling. So first of all, we know that we are writing a quadratic function in vertex form. Let's remind ourselves what vertex form was. That is y equals a times the quantity x minus, and I'm going to put this in a different color, h squared plus k. I put h in a different color just to remind you that h lies to us. Remember that h lies to us. And we've talked about this many times in class. So what is it that we've been given here? Well, I'm looking over here at the information in the graph. And first of all, I'm just going to jot down, I know the vertex. Vertex point's given to us. It's 4, 3. So 4, 3 is our vertex point. Knowing that, that tells us we know h and we know k. The other thing I know is the other point that's given to us, obviously, as you can see, and that point is 7, -3. And we know that that's our x, y. That's another point that we know. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take these points, these h, k, x, and y, and we're going to plug those into our equation that we've set up over here. So let's just do that now. So we know y is -3, so this becomes -3. We do not know what a is yet. We know our x value there is 7 because it's given to us. Now we got a minus h. H is 4 squared. And then plus our k value, which is 3. Okay, so now we want to do some math here. Let's go inside the parentheses and take 7 minus 4 and get 3. And then we square that. That gives us 9. So I'm going to rewrite -3 equals, and remember we just got 9 inside of there, and we're multiplying it by a on the outside, so that's 9a plus 3. Okay, next I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. You can see where we're going with this. Now we have -9 equals 9a. So here's what I just discovered. I'm sorry. Check my math again here. I put subtract 6, it's subtract 3. So this is actually -6 on this side. And then last thing we want to do is divide by 9. So we can see that when we do that, a is going to equal -6 over 9, which I'm going to go ahead and just reduce for you to -2/3. I just found my a value. A is -2/3. Now, if we go back to my equation and look, I know a, I know x, I know h, I know k. All I need to write my equation is a, h, and k, and I do know those three. So given what we now know, now that we know a, we can simply tell you what the equation is for this graph. It's going to be y equals, we just found a, it's -2/3 times the quantity x minus, and we know h, it's over there, it's 4 squared, plus k, which we know is 3. There is the equation of our parabola in vertex form, given that information. All right, let's move on to the next one. This one we want to write a quadratic function in intercept form. Well, first of all, let's take a look at what we know. They've not given us the vertex this time. We do know a point, which I'll circle up for you. We do know this point, which is -9, 3. So let's go ahead and write that one down. We've got -9, 3. That's an xy point we know. We do know, wait a minute, they gave us an x-intercept. negative 8, 0. That's our x-intercept. And they gave us our second x-intercept, which is negative 2, 0. Well, let's talk about those 2 points here in just a moment, but let's go ahead and get the equation for intercept form down first, and then we'll see why those become very important. So our equation for intercept form is y equals a again out front, and then inside we've got x minus p times x minus q. And this time I want to bring to your attention that remember P and Q are our x-intercepts, and we know those. So our intercepts were given to us here this time, which is very important to know. And they are, again, negative 8, 0 and negative 2, 0. So really we know our P and our Q. Okay, so let's plug in what we know here. Let's go over to our equation and start plugging in everything that we know. First of all, y. We know what y is. Y is 3. Equals, again, we do not know a. We're going to find a. Our x value you can tell is negative 9. And then it says minus p. Notice that our p value is already negative. So if we put a negative in for a negative, it becomes, yep, you guessed it, it becomes a positive. So we're going to be negative 9 plus 8. And then in parentheses, now we've got our x value again, negative 9. And this one's minus q. Again, minus q, and q is a negative, so it again becomes a positive, plus 2. All right, so we got to do a little bit of math here. We've got 3 equals a times, we're going to have negative 7 in this, sorry, negative 1 in this parentheses. Negative 1, let me write that again so it looks better. Negative 1 in this parentheses times negative 7 in this parentheses. So I'm going to multiply all that out and write it the correct way. We got negative 1 times negative 7, which is 7 times a. Divide both sides by 7. And we're going to get our value for a again. A is 3/7. We can tell that this parabola is a little opened up. Okay, so that makes sense when we look at 3/7. We know this is compressed a little bit. And now that we know that, we can write our equation. Here we go. In intercept form, y is going to equal 3/7, we just found it, times the quantity x plus 2, because remember it's x minus p and x minus q, so we know it's going to be plus 2 and a plus 8. We can write them in any order. I'll go ahead, since I had 8 written down first, I'll do the plus 8 first, and then the x plus 2 next. Again, this wouldn't have mattered if we put x plus 2 times x minus, or x plus 8, because multiplication does not matter what order we do it in. So there we go. We got our 3/7 times the quantity, x plus 8, times the quantity, x plus 2. And that is our equation in intercept form given that information. All right, our last example is interesting. This last example, you'll notice that all we know are 3 separate points, but it does tell us that this one we're doing in standard form. So let's remind you what that is. Standard form is y equals a times x squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. For each one of these points that they gave us, notice that they gave us an x and a y. If I can write it above here, it's going to be small. An x and a y, and an x and a y for each one of these. So we're going to use those 3 points to write 3 separate equations with this standard form equation. Let's start with point number 1, which we're going to call negative 2, 0. So we're going with x being negative 2, y being 0. And I'm going to put that in for this equation. So y is 0. So 0 equals, we do not know a. A times x, which we said is negative 2, squared, plus, we do not know b, but we know x is negative 2, plus, and we do not know c. Okay, so that's all I can plug in right now. Now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave that one alone, and I'm going to go to the next point, negative 1, 2, and I'm going to create another equation using my x as negative 1 and y as positive 2. So here we go. Let's do this again. Y equals, well, y is 2 equals, we do not know A, but we do know X. X is -1 squared. Plus, we do not know B, but again, we know X is -1. And again, we do not know C. I'm going to do the same thing for the third point, which is X is 3 and Y is 0. So let's write that last equation. So Y is 0 equals, again, we do not know A, but I do know that X is 3. I do not know, oh, sorry, I got to square that. I do not know B, but I do know X is 3 again, and I do not know C. All right, here's what I'd like to do. I'm going to take these three equations, and I'm going to rewrite them in a better way so that they look better and look familiar. Meaning, I want to get this equal sign, put it on the right side, and I want to square these out and put them in front of each one of these variables. So here we go. Let's start with the first one. -2 squared is going to give me 4, so that's 4a. Plus, -2 times b is just -2b, plus c. Okay, my next one. Let's put the equals on. Equals 0. I'll put the equals on the side that we like to see it on. This next one, -1 squared is 1, so that's 1a. Plus, actually going to become minus because it's -1 times b, which is -1b, plus c, equals 2. Again, all we're doing is just putting these equations together and writing them correctly. The last one, we got 3 squared, so that's going to give me 9a, plus 3b, because it's 3 times b, plus again 1c, and that equals 0. All right, so here's what we got. If you're looking at this, you're probably thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, this is 3 equations and 3 unknowns. Well, guess what? You know how to solve those now, and we know how to solve them quickly. We're going to make it into a matrix equation. So here we go. Let's set up a matrix equation for this. If you recall, we talked about what the matrix equation should look like. We're going to have an A matrix, which is basically made up the coefficient matrix. Let's write it out. 4, -2, and 1, because that's 1c. 1, -1, and 1, because again, that's 1c. And the last one is 9, 3, and 1, because again, that's 1c. That's my A. Times x, which my x, my y, and my z is what I'm solving for. That's my unknown matrix. Equals, I'm going to leave a little space. I'm going to put in my B, which is my solutions matrix. 0, 2, and 0. And here's what we were being reminded of. To solve this equation, all we have to do is multiply by the inverse here and by the inverse here. And what happens here is we know that these basically kind of cancel out and leave us x, y, z. But you'll notice I wrote x, y, z because I'm used to doing that. This is actually ABC because that's what we're solving for. And what we have to do is go to our calculator, put in matrix A, which is our coefficients matrix, put in matrix B, which is our solution matrix, and simply multiply A inverse times B to get our answer. When you do that, you will discover, and I'd like for you to put that in your calculator and do it, you're going to discover that A is going to equal -1/2, B is going to equal 1/2, and C is going to equal 3. And once we find A, B, and C, we're going to go back up to our original equation right here. This is standard form, and put in for A, B, and C. So now we can write our final answer. Our final answer is y equals A, which we now know is -1/2 times x squared, plus B, which we now know is 1/2 times x, and plus C, which we now know is 3. And there you have it. We just found our equation in standard form. And you'll notice we went back to our matrix trick again. So now you know, given some certain pieces of information, you can write these quadratic functions in vertex form, in intercept form, and also in standard form.